Hey fam, it's the Better Man podcast. We are helping men win. Speaking of winning, I want to talk about our two partners, our two sponsors that help make this show go. One is Aroga Drive. When I'm looking for day in and day out energy to keep this motor going, Aroga Drive is the one. Check them out at arogadrive.com/BetterMan. It's in the show notes. And then also our guys at Art of Homage, engaging culture in a winsome, and I'm going to tell you, a strong vibe. And if you go to the Art of Homage website, link is in the notes, we've got a code for 15% off. Just put in BetterMan15.
The evolution of marriage has changed so much from what it used to be. And what I mean by what it used to be is I'm talking biblically, right? From the perspective and the design of marriage, right? It was designed as a covenant relationship, and is morphed into or transformed into a contractual relationship.
Fam, welcome back. It's the Better Man podcast. With me, as always, D. To my right, man, how you living?
What's up? I'm good. Let's go.
Come on. Hey, this episode, we're going to talk about things that hinder, things that trouble, obstacles to overcome in marriage, and then we're going to give you some practical tools for that. Tell everybody how you met Miss Lindsay, bro. She the one. You outkicked your coverage.
I did. It's super interesting, man. I met her at a singles event at a church in Dallas. And the first thing she asked me was to get up and move. She wanted me to give my seat to one of her friends.
Yes, you did.
So I did that. But 7 months later, 7 months later, reintroduced myself to her. And a year after that, I asked her for a hand in marriage.
A year after that, you said, get up and move into this house.
Right. Yeah. Get up and move your hand and accept this ring.
That's right.
Let's go.
I love that. We got Manny in studio today. Manny, how did you meet your bride?
Met
Miss Jamie.
Yeah, met Jamie on a mission trip to Ukraine. She was in.
She's so holy, bro.
Yeah, it wasn't that holy, but I
really met her at the
mean,
club,
it was one of those things. You're on a mission trip.
It was a
You're on a
club
mission
in
trip.
Ukraine.
No, you're on a mission trip and you're supposed to be doing the right thing. But I was like, well, there's a girl here that I like, and so anyway. But no, we were young at the time. Like she was 12 and I was 15. I'm just joking. Anyway, no, but she was out of high school and I was about 3 years older, and so we just had a long distance relationship after that. She was from California, and I was from Texas, and so about 3-year relationship, and then we got married. So,
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Good times.
And I'm so excited to have Brother Isaac in the studio today. Isaac,
Excited
how you
to be
doing,
here.
man?
I'm doing great.
Good. Tell us how you met your bride.
So me and my bride, you were just joking a minute ago, but we did meet in the club. We did meet in the club.
Come on.
And so what happened, long story short, is we were having a celebration. I went through a program called African American Development of Leadership. Mm-hmm. And so I graduated from that program, and she wanted to learn more about the program. So she knew one of the other guys that were in the program, and he invited her out to this graduation celebration at the club. And she came through, and we started having conversation about the program, and one thing led to another, and found out she was single and I was single, and I said, well, let's see what we can do.
Single, ready to mingle.
Yeah.
Let's see what
We got
can do.
singles ministry. We got Ukraine. We got the club. Hey, Lord
you?
works in
Come on.
mysterious
How
ways.
you meet Allie?
Yeah.
Hey, mine was an arranged marriage.
Okay.
Allie's
Oh,
family.
yeah.
I knew Allie's family before I knew her, and her grandfather discipled me.
Oh, wow.
So once I passed the test, they were like, "This guy's all right. This guy's all right." So, and then I met her the first time I met her. She's a sign language interpreter.
Okay.
So I said, "Hey, I lied. I said, hey, I've been wanting to learn sign language my whole life. Maybe you come by and teach me some things." And to this day, I don't know a lick of sign language. To this day, Isaac, I love your shirt, man. It says
Thank you.
SaveYourMarriageFast.com. Tell us about that.
Yes. So my wife and I, we own and operate a mental health practice, and we're marriage therapists, licensed marriage therapists,
go.
and coaches. And so We've been operating this practice officially since 2019.
Come on.
But we've been doing marriage counseling for 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we started off as marriage ministry leaders at church, and everybody kept coming up to us, asking us, what do we need to do by way of marriage? Yeah. And so God opened up the door for us to start a practice. And so this here is really speaking against divorce and the rampant epidemic of divorce in our nation today. And the way you save your marriage fast, I'm sure we'll get into it as we talk further, but just really some solid principles on how to stay married versus running to get divorced.
I love that.
Hey, before we get too deep, Isaac, I just got a question.
Yes.
So you're a marriage therapist.
Yes.
How do you fight?
Oh, man, I would like to say fair, but that's
You got
not
all the
always the
answers,
case.
so I just want to know.
That's not always the case.
Right.
I think it really depends on how the personality of your spouse,
Yeah.
right, and understanding your conflict styles. And me growing up in the inner city, my conflict style is to fight. Right, you have fight, flight, or freeze. I'm a fighter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, and she's a freezer. And so once we learn that dynamic on how to fight fair, how to respect my fight, and how to respect her freeze and need for processing, that's how we begin to understand how to have conflict management and resolution.
Bro, you just brought clarity to my marriage, like in that one statement, bro. Fight,
Pay that man.
flight, or free. I know. I'm gonna get a bill after the end of the show. My wife is watching, saying "Amen."
Come on.
Because I'm fight. I not only do I not avoid confrontation and conflict, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
But my wife freezes, right? And I get upset when she doesn't process as fast or like I do. But really, most of the time I'm not processing. I'm just shooting from the hip,
Absolutely.
which is a problem.
Right.
Which is a problem, bro. Fight,
Fight,
or freeze.
Yeah.
That's really good, man.
That's interesting because my wife's the same thing, and so and I'm also fight, and so I wonder if it might be a guy thing, just because but that's it. I get emotional, I get loud, and I do more damage. I've realized over time, she's usually right, and I need to let her process, because by the time she processes it, I calm down, and then we work things out, and usually she's able to help me to figure out, see things from her point of view, and I'm like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't blow up. But that took me about 15 years to figure out.
Oh, absolutely. It takes some time to understand that, because you're so engulfed in your nature of conflict resolution, right? That sometimes it's hard to consider the person that God has linked you up with. But what we do in our practice to help individuals learn that, so they don't have to go through years of discovery and recovery, is really understanding rules of engagement. We give the practical skill set of rules of engagement. How do we engage one another, especially when we're in intense fellowship? You know what I mean?
That's a great word.
Especially when we're having intense
We
fellowship,
invite
how do
this
we
intense
engage one
fellowship.
another? So those rules of engagement are important.
Man,
Go ahead. No, I just want to know what the rules are. I need to know the rules.
No, we need
This whole thing is changing. Come on. We all get therapy up in here.
well, so something you said, and we're going to get to that because something you said is super important. Morgan Housel's latest book is called Same as Ever. Now, I think it's chapter 3 of the book, but he talks about the state of California. And he said for decades, because California is on a fault line, they would try to predict when the earthquake was going to happen so that they would save infrastructure and save lives. Yeah. Well, finally, some dude in the California government put his hand up and said, wait. Like, it's on a fault line. We know an earthquake is coming. It's inevitable. So instead of predicting it, how about we just start preparing for it?
Absolutely.
Right? And they started building buildings that were earthquake proof. That's where the whole drill of get underneath your desk came from, right? And because they started preparing instead of always trying to predict, I mean, they literally saved thousands of lives and billions of dollars of infrastructure.
Yeah.
What you just said is this, I mean, it's the same principle, right? If you're in intense or intimate relationship with someone, there's going to be intense fellowship at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Ain't no sense in predicting when it's going to happen, man. How do we prepare for it for when it gets here?
Absolutely.
Right? Because we know a guy that says, I never fight with my wife.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're either lying or you live in a separate house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the two things, right? So, man, let's unpack the theories and strategy of engagement, man. But how do we prepare for when the conflict comes?
Absolutely. That's a great question. First and foremost, conflict is healthy
Come on.
when you experience it correctly. And so I think I want to dispel that myth first that, that conflict is bad. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how you handle it, right? And then it goes back to perception versus perspective. And when you talk about planning, how do I perceive this earthquake or this intense fellowship coming? And then what's my point of reference by way of perspective? How was I raised in my household? How did my parents deal with conflict and prepare for or weather the storm, right? So you bring some of that into your marriage just naturally because that's how you were raised. So the planning piece really helps, is formulated around what's your perception and what's your perspective
Come on.
of conflict.
That's good. What types, you're in it every day. What types, are there any conflicts, themes that emerge when we're looking at marriage in the 21st century today?
Oh, absolutely. The evolution of marriage has changed so much from what it used to be. And what I mean by what it used to be is I'm talking biblically.
Come on.
Right, from the perspective and the design of marriage, right, was designed as a covenant relationship, and is morphed into or transformed into a contractual relationship.
Bro.
And so when you have covenant versus contract, you find yourself in disarray most times, right? Because contract is really about agreement. Contract is really about a legally binding agreement. Covenant is about relationship and understanding that commitment is there. And I think we falter on commitment these days. It's so easy to find your way out of a contract. You can't find those same loopholes in a covenant.
Come on.
Yeah. So you're talking about themes. Is there a specific theme or reoccurring theme that you see with men
Yes.
when it comes to marriage?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
False leadership.
Wow, unpack that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of men today in marriage have a false understanding of what leadership is. And what I mean by that is they're top heavy with authority and they're light on the influence side of things.
That's deep.
Authority says you have to, and influence says you want to. So when men are more top heavy with authority, they run their house as a dictatorship, and they make their wives comply, versus having the influence and showing up consistently to make them want to.
Come on, somebody.
To follow. And so a warped understanding of leadership is what's causing, I think, a downfall in marriage, particularly for men, as we're called to lead as men.
Yeah. And we were talking about this on another podcast. I think that is probably the effect of lack of discipleship,
Absolutely.
which is why BetterMan exists.
100%.
Wow.
100%.
So, break that down for me or for everybody who's listening. You have people come in all the time that you're talking to. Where do you start with them? And then what's the process that you take them through? And obviously you can't give a whole session right here for us, but maybe you can walk through some things like that to help us to understand a little bit of how those of us who need this, how we can get through this in a better way.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think it starts with my wife and I, we do this together for a specific reason. It's intentional. A husband and wife team, speaking from some personal experiences, but also the clinical focus behind it. And it starts with coming together as a unified front. But then also what we've noticed is there's times where you need to break away and have that individual session with that man, one-on-one, and start the deconstruction process. You have to deconstruct the ideologies, the understandings, the lack thereof, to be able to build back again. And what I found is in the one-on-one space, clearly men are a lot more transparent with you, as opposed to sitting right next to their wife in those couple sessions. So I think simultaneously doing that work of deconstruction, but then coming together and rebuilding.
Go ahead.
There's a word that Brother Isaac keeps using that I want to clarify, the deconstruction, because that has a big negative connotation in the faith today. But hear what he just said. He didn't say deconstruct your marriage because you want to tear it apart. He said deconstruct it so you can build it back better.
Absolutely.
Like when we talk about the deconstruction of the faith, like there have been books written about this. They're trying to deconstruct the faith to tear it apart, to prove that it's not true, to prove that it's not worth pursuing. Yeah. What my man said is deconstruct your marriage because you're going to build back something better. And that's what G.K. Chesterton, great philosopher, great, the good bishop, right? He said nationalist, right? Fanatics, they love something and they're blind. They can never see what's wrong with it.
Absolutely.
They just blindly love it. And he said anarchists want to destroy a thing because they want it destroyed.
Yeah.
But the true love, like the true patriot, he said, will look at something and they'll know, man, I can tear or rip this piece out because I'm going to build back something better.
Absolutely.
Right, and that's what we want, not just for our faith, but according to you, and I think it's exactly right, what we want in our marriages too.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm really curious. Like, I think for some people, you hear deconstruction, and I'm like, okay, I think I get what you're saying. You've got to break down, but can you get what are some of the questions that you're asking? Maybe 3 of your top questions that you're asking that get to the heart of the issue for that person. That the deconstruction process begins with that person.
Yeah. So
just like some examples of what you say.
Absolutely. So in the practice, we do coaching and counseling. Right, we're big components of premarital counseling and postmarital coaching. And so what I mean by that is, to answer your question, when I am doing counseling or therapy, those questions always stem from childhood traumas.
Wow.
We always bring something to the marriage, right? We show up with some type of baggage.
Yeah.
And at that point, most times, and I always use this metaphor too, it's kind of like when you go to the airport and you need to check your bag. They weigh it to see how heavy it is before it's able to get on the plane. And if it's overweight, then you have to open up that suitcase and remove things that cause that case to be overweighted.
Come on.
That's good.
But most times people are okay with doing that, but it's the carry-on that never gets checked. So you put the most sensitive things in the carry-on, and you bring that on.
That's a great analogy, bro.
Right?
That's a word.
And you bring it on the plane with you.
SaveYourMarriageFast.com.
Absolutely. Right?
Let's go.
And so I'm okay with exposing some of those things that's not going to put me on Front Street. So I'll open up that big suitcase and I remove a couple of items to get it underweight. But it's the most sensitive things that I carry on with me and keep it close to me that sometimes my spouse is unaware of until intense fellowship or that earthquake comes. Now I got to dig in that bag that I brought on the plane to begin to expel some of these things.
My gosh, how many men brought a carry-on with them into their marriage? We all did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To some degree, man.
Yes.
And to begin to unpack that's brilliant, bro. That's
So good.
brilliant. That's really, really good.
So I'm gonna have to use that, bro.
Right.
I can already think. I'm like, I got to use that all over the place.
Still
You're more than welcome. More than welcome. Absolutely.
So when you help men to see that and unpack that, what type of response do you get? Or does it depend on the maturity level of that man? Like what does that look like?
So it's mixed.
Yeah.
And it definitely depends on the maturity level because some people who come to counseling is not ready for what's going to be exposed. Some men come because their wives told them to, their mom's been saying this is necessary for you. Other people have kind of pushed them into that space, but it's the one who understands that when I look in the mirror, there's a reflection there that I don't like. So I'm going to bring myself to therapy to get the help that I need. Those are the ones that are more receptive when opening up that carry-on. But I've been doing this for 18 years now. And so whether the man has been pushed in that space or voluntarily comes to that space, I'm going to open the bag anyway. And I'm okay with whatever response comes because that's when we begin to do that discovery and that recovery piece.
Yeah.
Opening that bag, I'm discovering, helping that man discover what's in it, but then I'm also helping them recover. And I think that's where we lose a lot of men is we help them to discover what's wrong with them, so to speak.
Yeah.
but we don't help them recover from what's wrong.
Come on, discover and recover.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
And that's that, we talk at BetterMan a lot about there's a modern day stoicism going on right now, right? Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, Ryan Holiday, they've taken that kind of Spartan culture, stoics, and they've repackaged it. And what men hear often is, man, if you have hurt, if you have trauma, just push it down, right? Or discipline and train yourself to overcome it.
Absolutely.
But as a licensed therapist and counselor, you know that any trauma in our life that we don't allow to be transformed, we will ultimately transfer onto someone else.
Oh, absolutely.
And I bet you see a lot of men who are either intentionally or unintentionally hurting their children, hurting
Yes.
their spouse because they have not allowed that trauma to be
Oh
transformed.
man, so it's interesting, right? I want to speak to that point. There's a quote that I subscribe to. It's not mine. I did get it from somewhere else, but it goes like this. It reads, "If you never recover from what cut you, then you'll bleed on those who didn't."
Man.
Yeah.
Man.
Right? And I think the modern man is dealing with the 3S syndrome. And you mentioned one of the S's. That's strong, be silent, be stoic. That's the 3S syndrome, right? But then the antidote to those 3 S's is the 4 A's that I implement, right? Which is awareness, alignment, accountability, awareness, alignment, assignment, accountability.
Come on.
So when you take those 4 A's and you put them up against those 3 S's, it dispels that and give the man the awareness that he needs, the alignment that he needs, the assignment that we're all called to. We all have a purpose. So attached to our purpose is our assignment. And then how do I hold him accountable as your therapist to make sure that you get done what you need to get done?
That's good, bro.
Wow.
That's like what we normally say at BetterMan. We don't call a man out unless we can call him up to something.
Let's go.
So when you help to open those wounds, you don't leave him there.
Let's go.
You give him medicine.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You help him to grow. You help him to heal, man. That's good.
Hey, Isaac, if you have you seen, just like as you've been talking to so many different couples, and I think we see the symptoms of a lot of unhealthy things in people's lives, like with anger, with pride, with abuse, different things like that. Do you see a connection between something that happened when they're younger? Is there a trend that you're like, hey, usually this happened here. That's why this is happening here. Have you seen anything like that?
Oh man, every day.
Okay, so like, what are the common things that you're like, okay, this generally causes this?
And this is
Yeah.
going to bring awareness. Like
Yeah.
men need to be aware
Right,
of this.
right.
It's your A.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm a firm believer that a behavior is a sign of an unmet need.
Good.
So when you see men show up and behave a certain way, there's a need that hasn't been met. And most times it's because it's a childhood need.
Okay.
Right? So affirmation that is not given in childhood will cause a man to show up as insecure.
Wow.
And so when you have that insecure behavior, you're
My
looking and
Lord.
seeking attention from
Yeah.
anybody and everybody who will give it to you.
Huh.
So that's a direct correlation. But then I'll also say that anger is a secondary emotion, right? There's always a primary emotion that comes before anger. And this is where I do a lot of work around my men because a lot of men show up angry. And, as we mentioned earlier, as we talk about our conflict styles, right? Most of us are fight. So when I never seen a happy fighter. Right? It's the majority is angry fighters.
Right.
And so if most men are fighters, then let's talk about what that primary emotion is that's underneath that anger. And a lot of times for men, it's guilt and shame.
Wow.
So when you have guilt or you have shame immensely, it shows up as anger. Direct correlation.
Man,
I wasn't ready for the answer, man. You're hitting me too hard. That's good stuff, man.
He's
Yeah,
a
that-
fighter.
Yeah.
Well, it's that idea that below every emotion is kind of the real emotion or the root
yes.
cause, right? And dude, there's something, translate this a little bit to the church because we see this because we work with pastors and leaders of men across the country, right? And we're seeing there's a lot of church hurt because, especially with the young pastors, and I don't say this to offend anybody, but it's just a reality. There's a lot of young pastors today they lead, teach, preach in such a way to get the affirmation from their congregation that they never got from their dad.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And it causes a whole host of issues
100%.
because they haven't dealt with that kind of undergirding emotion that it comes back to identity, being rooted in Christ. This is who I am. But
Yes.
but just as toxic as it can be in a marriage, man, it'll be toxic in a church, toxic in a workplace.
That's right.
Man, that's powerful. What would you say? There are men watching right now. Some of them just got off the phone with their divorce attorney,
Yeah.
right? Like they feel like they're at the point of no return. Like, what would you say to that man right now?
I would say that there's always a return. And what I mean by that is there's a path that's been forged that you feel like you have to go on, right? But you can create a new path. You can create a new path. It'll take some work, but you can create a new path.
Yeah.
And so I would say before you get that divorce, come see us.
Yeah, there you go.
First and foremost, right? Let's talk through some of those reasons why you feel like this is the way out for you. And understand, again, changing your perception from this is my only way to your perspective, I have other alternatives.
Yeah, that's really good. And if they had to seek you out right now, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of us is to visit our website, which is collinscounselingservices.com.
Yeah, and we're going to link that in the show notes for anybody watching. We'll have that link in the show notes. But that's the quickest way to, because you got to save your marriage fast.
Oh, absolutely.
That's right.
If you go to saveyourmarriagefast.com, that'll direct you right to our website as well. And there's a book now, consultation is the first step for us to be able to talk for 15 minutes around the issues that's bringing you to services at the time. And then we just go right into it. My wife and I, we're looking to establish some online courses as well around called the Intimacy Academy.
Yeah.
And that will be talking about the art of intimacy, right? For men, intimacy is spelled SEX.
That's right.
Right? And for women, it's spelled TALK. Right? So how do you balance the need for physical connection or intimacy with the need for emotional intimacy? So Intimacy Academy will be helping men and women understand how to get intimacy back into their marriage.
Yeah. What about a lot of young men watching the show, a lot of single men watching the show? What can I be doing right now? Talk about preparation.
Yes.
Right. What are 2 or 3 things I can be doing right now to be preparing to be the husband and man that I'm supposed to be?
That's a great question because I didn't have any training prior to. But since I've been doing this for a while, I would say to a single man, the greatest thing that you can do is learn how to communicate.
Wow.
Learn how to get in touch with your emotional side.
Yep.
And then understand that marriage is not just about providing, but provision. What is your vision? What do you see? How can you articulate that to your soon-to-be spouse?
Yeah.
And how can you emotionally get into a place where you're comfortable with how you feel?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And Dallas Willard's quote around marriage and around love is one of the best I've ever heard. And he basically said, love is simply having somebody else's best interest at heart. Right? And man, you talk about those 3 S's, right? Strong, silent, stoic. Yeah. All that is self-centered. All that is about me. And to be the husband, to be the men God's called us to be, it really is to die to self and to live for God's daughter, this woman that he has blessed us with, man.
100%.
And Isaac, I'm telling you, this show will be our most watched show, man. And you have blessed men today, dude, with your wisdom, with your words. Ryan, I'm going to need you to send me the raw footage before this even comes out because I got 4 or 5 things I got to work on. It's so good. Thank you so much, bro, for being on the show today, man.
We'll love to be here. Thank you.
Catch you soon, man.
Yeah.